Well, last time I tried to convince you that at least for nonlinear dynamics, but also Glenn has shown that for reaction diffusion problem, you can write mean values of at least of products of fields. Let's call that O of phi. You can write it as if you had an equilibrium problem, but then the difference is you don't have to sum over phi, but also over another field. Let's call it phi bar with a weight that depended on both fields. And of course, you need to normalize it. Here, this notation is just the sum over all field configurations in each point and on each time. So you see that this expression looks a lot very similar that the one you obtain with Boltzmann weight. In that case, you are no time dependent, only space dependent. But the expression looks very similar, but you have an effective Hamiltonian here. And of course, again, you need to normalize the expression. Okay? So, this second lecture will not work on the out of equilibrium problem. I will work in the equilibrium case, but I tried to convince you last time that if you know how to work it here, then to go to the out of equilibrium case, at least in these cases where you have Langevin dynamics or reaction diffusion process, you simply, the important point is to know how to handle this field theory. And in this case, the only change is to put, instead of one field, to have two fields, and not only positions, but also times. Okay? So I don't want today about time, nor about this second field. The second field is normally called the response field. In my third lecture, I hope to explain why. Okay? So this action can be taken as the Martin-Sijarose expression or the Doi-Peliti expression. As I have shown you at the end of my last lecture, that those expressions are almost identical, but in the Doi-Peliti expression, you know all the coefficients from the reaction diffusion process itself, and some coefficients are incorrect predictably by the Martin-Sijarose. They are 0, for example, and they should not be 0. But if you are interested in universal problems do not depend on the precise values of the couplings that appear in the action, so the results should not depend on that. But of course, if you want to look to non-universal problems, you need to know exactly the shape of S. Okay? So I will today work on equilibrium problems. So, in order to parameterize all these correlation functions, the one thing one often do is to consider the partition function of this. I will use a magnetic notation all along. I would think that this is a Ginsburg-Landau model. Okay? So when I will peak of phi. Phi will be a local magnetization. And here J is an external magnetic field. But don't care too much about that. The important point is that you modify your effective Hamiltonian by a term that is local and linear on the field. Okay? This is the generating functional of correlation function. Why do you call it that way? Because if you take derivatives of phi, each time you take a derivative of phi, you see you put down a phi. Okay? If you take two derivatives, you put down two phi's and so on. So, for example, if you want to take the mean value of phi, you would put the derivative of zj with respect to j at x divided by zj, everything evaluated at g equal to 0. I'm supposing that I don't put a magnetic external field. You could consider also the correlation functions in presence of such an external magnetic field, but normally I will put it to 0 at the end. Okay? In the same way, you can calculate all correlation functions by taking derivatives. Okay? Well, in fact, we don't normally work with this quantity. Instead of working with the partition function, it's much better to work with the Helmholtz free energy that is essentially the logarithm of that. Okay? For many reasons, this is a much more gentle quantity. And in fact, things are even better if you don't work. This is the Helmholtz free energy. But it is even better if you consider you call phi, capital Phi, as the mean value of phi, but in presence of sources. Okay? Not with zero sources. Okay? And this is nothing but the derivative of the logarithm of zj with respect to the source, but without putting the source to 0. So instead of looking to a free energy as a function of the external magnetic field, I will look to a free energy as a function of the local magnetization, the mean local magnetization. Okay? So, in order to go from one to the other, we use a standard thermodynamics strategies that the idea is to use a Legendre transform to go from W to gamma of phi. Gamma of phi is the integral of dx j phi x phi x minus w j phi, where j phi is the source that is necessary to put here in order to the mean field to be phi. You see, I invert this relation. This is a function that relates j in terms of phi in terms of j. I write the inverse relation. I write g as a functional of phi, and I call it J phi. Okay? So in this way, I am able to define this here. Okay?
Just for completeness, that phi is the same one with the parasite, right?
Sorry?
This phi is the same as the argument of the functional.
Yeah, of course. This phi?
Yeah.
Yeah, big phi and small phi.
I don't make the difference between this phi and this phi, but I will make the difference with this phi. Okay? So you are aware now. I will do this mistake many times. Okay. So, well, if you know how to calculate this quantity, sometimes called the effective action, but I prefer the Gibbs free energy, you can calculate everything. At least in principle, but it's clear that you can calculate correlation function. Okay? So the goal is to calculate that. Okay? In a given model. So first of all, I'm supposed to speak about non-perturbative renormalization group, but it's good to know how this quantity is written in terms of standard, very simple mean field theory. Okay? So mean field. Or lambda. Okay? How is the shape of gamma mean field approximation? So let's look at exponential of this is z. Okay, that j is the integral okay. So let's calculate it in mean field. What does mean field do? They suppose that fluctuations are negligible, that the configuration space, the dominant contribution to this integral is given by the most probable configuration. Okay? What is the most probable configuration? Is the one that minimizes this exponent. Okay? So the Landau approximation says that you have here exponential of minus Fm Pm plus Pm J. Pm of course depends on J, and this is the configuration that minimizes the minus the exponent. So it verifies psi m. It verifies that the functional derivative of h with respect to phi x evaluated at phi m is nothing but jx. Is it clear for everybody what I'm doing now? I simply say I take in the derivative in order to find the exponent of this. I take the derivative, the functional derivative of this, and this is the expression of this functional derivative. Okay? So we have here the expression for the Helmholtz free energy. And these are formal expressions. Okay? Well, this is a very bold expression. So in order to have a simpler expression, I will do this Legendre transform. So how to do that? Well, in order to do that, I need first to calculate what is the value, the phi, the relation between this quantity and x. Okay, I need that as a function of x. After that, I will inverse this relation and replace here. So in order to do so, I recall you that phi is the derivative of w with respect to j. This is w. So I take the derivative here. So phi x is the derivative of w of g with respect to gx. Okay? I need to take the derivative. So the first time that is very easy to differentiate is this one, applying the derivative here. Okay? So in this case, I have phi m of j x. First term. But I must recall you that phi m depends on j. So I must differentiate here and also here. So let's differentiate here. I will have minus the integral of dy of the derivative of h with respect to phi m differentiated with respect to phi m of y times the derivative of phi m of y with respect to jx. Okay? This is nothing but the chain rule of differentiation, a functional differentiation. I can take the derivative with respect to any phi m, and after that phi m, I can differentiate it with respect to j, and I will do the same thing here. So I use a slight change of name here. This is a dumb letter. So I use jx y here, and I take this derivative phi m of jx. And now the good news is that this is equal to this. So this is equal to this. So these two terms cancel. So I conclude that phi of x is nothing but fm. That's great news. That is a very simple expression. Okay? And it is a reasonable expression, because if you are only considering one configuration, it is reasonable that the mean value is just that configuration. If you neglect the equation, it's difficult to believe that the mean value can be something else than the value of this. So I can go to gamma, to the Gibbs free energy. How to do that? Well, simply use the expression gamma phi is equal. So first this term, okay, and minus, I must subtract the Helmholtz free energy that I have here, this not very beautiful expression. So I have here minus h of phi m of y of j, sorry, plus but now I must use that in this. Here I use mean field. Landau. But in Landau, I can replace phi m by phi, by capital phi. So this term cancel with this term. Because at the mean field approximation, phi n and capital phi are the same thing. So I can also replace here phi n by capital phi. So I arrive to a very, very simple expression which is in mean field you must simply replace the effective Hamiltonian by in order to have the full free energy, you must simply replace the effective Hamiltonian. In the effective Hamiltonian, you must replace the field by its mean value. Okay? And you have the free energy. Okay, that's the first thing I wanted to. Everybody knows that? Yeah? Okay, so what I wanted to do now is to go beyond mean field. Okay? All the purpose of my talk is what happened beyond mean field. So the first thing I needed is to explain what happened at mean field. So let's go one step beyond and see, well, let's suppose that mean field is a good approximation, but not quite good. Okay? Relatively good approximation. So you would suppose that mean field is the dominant expression, and you will have small corrections than you want to calculate. Okay? But this is an important stuff if you don't know if the mean field is a good approximation or not. The best thing to do is to say, well, if mean field is a good approximation, I can calculate the small corrections, the supposed small corrections are around mean field, and verify if those small corrections are or are not small. If they are small, we don't know really anything. It's an educated guess that the approximation is reasonable because you calculate correction and they effectively small. But what you are certainly sure is that those corrections are large, the approximation doesn't work. It is not self-consistent. Okay? So let's calculate one loop correction. So, 1, 2, Ginsburg correcting. So we will see what happens if you look at the first correction around lambda. So everything is clear for the moment. Please ask if any. I need all this stuff in order to go one step further. So if it isn't clear, please ask now before it's too late. Okay.
Well, I guess I do have my.
Okay, I was waiting.
Why do you write? This is just a mathematical question. Why do you write a functional derivative of h through the integral? Why is it?
Why? Because you can take the difference not at the same place. You see, I am differentiating with respect to the source at a given point. Okay? But here you can take the derivative with respect to any the function you look at any point. Because this is a function of the value of the this is a functional of the h can be seen as a function of the value of the function in all points. So when you take the chain rule, you now differentiate.
So you must sort of include all points.
Yeah.
Not just at one point.
No, of course. Any other question?
Can I just ask? Hamiltonian usually means energy. Now you're equating Hamiltonian with the free energy. So
okay, for me, Kt is 1. Okay, Kt is 1. I don't. This is not exactly free energy. This is free energy up to some trivial factors. Okay, Kt.
So where is the entropy part?
Well, you say basically you have G equals E here, so how does that work?
Well, this is not a true this is not a true Hamiltonian. This is what sometimes calls called effective Hamiltonian, where the fluctuations, well, you know, if you don't have entropy, if you don't have fluctuation, you don't have really entropy. Okay? So in this approximation, if you take it seriously, you don't have any entropy. Okay? Of course, this Hamiltonian may already include some entropy corresponding. You see, if you put here this Bourlandau Hamiltonian, normally it depends already on the temperature. That means that you already took into account the relation, for example, of the spins with a sort of coarse-grained local magnetization. And you took into account this fluctuation, this small-scale fluctuation. But the long-distance fluctuations are not included here. That's why you have the impression that there is... this effective Hamiltonian already includes small-scale fluctuations, but large-scale fluctuations are not included, so that's why you say that there is no entropy. You see? If you have only configuration, you don't have entropy.
So you're saying it's coarse grain, so whatever is underneath the coarse grain, that's sort of the small fluctuation which have been coarse grained out. So in some sense they're included, but large fluctuation.
Yeah. Once you have taken for granted this effective Hamiltonian, there is no more fluctuation, so no more. You see? Clear? Okay. If you had instead of the Gisborne-Landau here, but Ising, a true microscopic. If you had a true microscopic description with a true energy here, this approximation would have simply neglect entropy. Okay. So the correction I will calculate now, in fact, includes entropy. This is the first thing we will have to do. Long scale entropy. So how to do that? We get back again to the Helmholtz free energy. Okay. And now we will say that phi is not quite the minimum of the exponent, but something close to that. Let's call it phi tilde. Phi tilde, I don't want it. Okay, that's more. Okay? That's more compared to that. Supposedly small. Okay? So we'll make an expansion on psi. A leading order. More or less non-trivial order. So, how to do that? Well, you can say that this expression, J phi, you will expand on it, you will write it as phi m plus psi, and I will expand on, perform a functional Taylor expansion. So, if I take the zero order, I have the mean field. If I take the first order, I will have that. And somebody could say, well, first non-trivial order, I stop here. No, in fact, I will show that this term do not contribute. So I need to go one step further, and I will take plus, etc. I don't write. I will stop here. Okay? I will neglect everything that's came after because I'm saying I'm nearby mean field. So I put that on that expression. So I have, first of all, the mean field expression. So I can write it as minus j by m. Now I have this integral, but you see the change of variable going. This is a non-fluctuating variable. With respect to the functional integral, this is a constant. Okay? So to integrate over phi or to integrate over psi is the same. Okay? It's only a shift. So I will directly integrate over psi. So here I have the times psi. So here I have this term first. So I have that term. I write it in condensed notation to save space. And I have one other term, because here I consider only the phi m part, but it's phi what appears here. So I need still to consider a term with psi.
There's a psi in the linear.
Sorry?
You have a j in the linear.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Psi. Here.
It's like a buzz on it.
Yeah. So x, so psi, and here I have j. Okay. But again, this term, because of this relation, this term cancels with this one. That's why I need to go to the second order, because the first order simply cancels. Okay? So here, nothing. But the good news is that, well, of course I will need to have dots here, but I will neglect dots. And we see that we have now our log Gaussian integral. Okay? So I have an integral that I can make explicitly. Well, this is a very complicated Gaussian integral because it is a functional Gaussian integral. Okay, but I recall you that every time we can imagine that this problem has been defined. Yeah.
What is that? The side determinant.
That will be a determinant. Sorry?
What is side determinant? The linear term is side times j term cancel.
Why this term cancels? Because
no, this one, second one.
This does not cancel.
No. Sorry, the last one.
This one cancels with this one. Those cancel. Because
I see.
yeah. Okay. Well, now, how to perform Gaussian integral? I already used, many of us have used Gaussian integral, but it is good to tell you that if you have a certain number of discrete variables, dxn, you sum over all these discrete values. So you have a double sum, n phi n a n m n. This is a Gaussian integral. So you can So this integral, even if you put a linear term also, you can perform this integral analytically. This is an exercise, and it is proportional to 1/2 of the double sum n of j n. Here you put the matrix inverse of A. You can see A as the matrix with components n, A, and n. Here you have that. And you must also introduce a determinant of A to the power 1 minus 1/2. And also you have some 2 key factors that I think that they are n over 2. Let's verify. I will always forget about those factors because they simply cancel in integral, but what I wrote is correct. Okay? So, well, if you didn't know that, it's better to know that. Okay? Okay, Gaussian integral. And here, you see that this expression here can be seen as a huge matrix where indices are positions x and y. So instead of having discrete indices here, you have discontinuous indices. But conceptually, imagine that you discretize, so you will have a finite number of indices. Okay? So this Gaussian integral can be done, and you arrive to, well, first of all, the mean field expression. Okay? And after that, well, you see, this is a constant factor. Okay? And here J, in this expression is only a quadratic term. There is no linear term. So this factor do not exist. We have only the determinant. And this constant factor doesn't bother us because for this is a partition function. If you multiply a partition function for a certain constant, it doesn't change anything. So I don't take into account this factor because it's simply a constant. It gives you an additive correction to the free energy, so no physical consequence. And the determinant will have the determinant of the secondary functional derivative of h, evaluated at phi equals phi n. I didn't put it here, but okay, to the power minus. Okay, this is one loop. Why I call it one loop? Well, I will not prove that. But if you use diagrammatic techniques, these are the corrections that came to the free energy from one loop corrections. Okay? One loop in the sense of Feynman diagrams. But I will not need that. It's only for the name. Because everybody calls it one loop, so it's better to call it as singular.
So you're neglecting this J versus J.
No, I'm not neglecting. Here I only have quadratic terms. So if you have J equal to 0,
Yeah, the J is equal to 0, but your J is obviously not 0 because
no. There is no linear term inside here. Okay? There's only quadratic term. So I should give you the formula without that. Okay? Is it? Okay, so what to do with this horrible data? So the idea is, you see, it is better to work with the free energy. So we would like to put it on the exponential. But this is good news because in the exponential it is easier. We would like to have not the determinant, but the logarithm of the determinant of a matrix. And this is very much more simpler than the determinant. Well, no, it's the same. It's the trace of the logarithm of the matrix. This is an exercise. Okay? Don't prove it for this huge matrix. It's too hard. Prove it for a simple matrix. Okay? Well, of course, this formula requires some basic stuff. This matrix needs to be positive definite. Okay? You can always take it symmetric, of course, because it appears in a quadratic expression. But if you have a symmetric real matrix, the spectral theorem ensures you that can be diagonalized, and we will suppose that all these eigenvalues are positive. If that happens, this formula is okay. If not, you see, the determinant is the product of eigenvalues. So you will have a problem with the logarithm. Okay? So let's suppose that all eigenvalues are positive. And then this formula works. Okay, so this formula then, by using that, I conclude that the free energy as a function of the external magnetic field is, first of all, the mean field expression, and we have this correction. It is important to do not forget the minus 1/2 that appear here in the exponent, and after that trace of logarithm of the second derivative of h. Okay, this is one. Again, well, even in mean field, the expression is horrible. So we learned some minutes ago that the expression in the case of the Gibbs free energy is much simpler. So let's do the same here. Let's try at least. So first of all, we need to calculate capital phi, which is the derivative of the Gibbs, the temporal free energy with respect to J. So again, I have this term. I will not proceed that. I would say this is phi m of J plus a certain correction I will not calculate. Okay? We know that if we neglect this term, those things are equal. Okay? So if I include one correction, I will have a certain correction that I will not calculate. Okay? I will not need it finally. Okay? We could calculate. It's a very rare expression. It doesn't matter. There is a correction here. So what I'm going to do is to take this Helmholtz free energy and deduce the Gibbs free energy just by using the definition of the Gibbs free energy. Minus. Okay, I recall you this relation and I substitute the one root expression. So I have here the x. So I take this term and I subtract this term. Okay? So when I subtract, I have that. Everybody agrees? I have this minus sign here. So this term, I took into account this term and this term. I use another color here. This term and this term are done. So this term, for the moment, I only write it with a minus sign. Okay? So this term is done. And there is the one loop term, plus 1/2 trace of logarithm of second derivative of h. Okay? So, the point is, we want to evaluate, we want the expression in terms of capital phi, not in terms of phi m. So I'm gonna use, I will replace the phi m in terms of capital phi. And I use that the C psi is delta phi is supposed to be small. The difference should be small. So here I will use a Taylor expansion for this term. Sorry. And now I will use this can be written as phi h of capital phi plus the integral. I will use the first order linear expansion, derivative of h with respect to phi times delta phi minus plus minus. I will neglect the terms to the square because I'm working at the leading order, okay? And I also write the last term. You see, this last term is already a correction, okay? This term is not the leading one. This term comes from the one loop correction. So in this term, I can safely replace phi m by phi because the difference will be of the higher order. So here, I can put this evaluated as phi. Okay? And the good news is that J here this is already of order, so I can put here that. Okay. This is already a correction here, that's fine. So I put that, and these two things cancel. So if you have learned the formula I just will write, all my lectures have been useful because this is an extremely important. I think, yeah. In field theory, I would say this is the most important. So gamma phi at one loop is h of phi plus 1/2 trace log. Very important. The proof is, well, it's a bit technical, okay? But if you find the proof too difficult, forget about it, okay? This is in the notes. You should redo all the calculation by yourself, okay? This is not hard, but there are many steps. Anyway, what is very important is the result, okay? We'll use it a lot. So, well, there is a typo in the notes here. Of course, you already found it because I gave you the notes last time. It's in the line just after the equation 1.60. it should be say at the end the sum of logarithm of eigenvalues.
So can you repeat that?
In the line just after 1.60, at the end, it should be said the sum of logarithm of eigenvalues. Okay? One of the errors I found, I am waiting for the error you found. Okay, so I have this equation. Well, I'm going to use it. I will give you some examples. What is the main use I will use now? Is to show, to at least have a guess where mean field works and when mean field doesn't work. In fact, Ben already gave what is called the Gizmo criterion. Okay? I will show you how it comes from here. So in particular, you can consider the Gibbs free energy for not a varying external field, but for a constant external field. In that case, you can consider the density of Gibbs free energy. That is called the effective potential. So gamma, in that case, if phi of x is identically to a phi that do not depend on x, this is proportional to the volume times a function of phi. That now is a constant. Okay? So let's calculate. In order to have the expression for that, you must simply evaluate this equation at a constant external field. So, well, there is something I didn't done in mean field, is that this derivative can be done in mean field. Okay? Mean field, because you know that you can say that this second derivative at a constant field is, you can do that calculation for your own, is minus gradient of the delta x minus y plus R0, the delta, plus u over u0 over 2 phi squared times the delta. So if you take Fourier transform of that, okay, but this matrix is a huge matrix, but its eigenvalues are very simple. They are obtained by going to the Fourier basis. If you take to the Fourier basis, the matrix becomes diagonal, and its eigenvalues take the form p to the square. Okay, this is the eigenvalues of the matrix. Okay, so if I put it here, I will obtain that the effective potential is the potential I had in the Hamiltonian, which is nothing but R0 over 2 pi to the square plus U0 over 4 factorial e to the 4 plus half of the trace. Trace is the sum over all eigenvalues. The eigenvalues are characterized by this p. So I have the sum over p. Well, you can believe me that the correct normalization is the one I am writing, and you will have the logarithm of, because you are taking the trace, you take the sum over all eigenvalues, or sum of all p, the logarithm of the okay? That's the one loop expression for the effective potential. You see, at zero order, I mean, without considering the loop correction, you have simply mean field. The potential is like in the Hamiltonian. Okay? If you consider the loop correction, you have this value. This is the entropy factor.
Sorry, could you explain again your starting expression for the second derivative of the Hamiltonian? The derivative.
This one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm going to write the Hamiltonian and do that. Okay, so Wschebor and now Hamiltonian, they have this shape. But I am evaluating it at capital R. Okay? So, my lecture is finishing in 5 minutes. That's fine. I'm there. Okay. Well, if you take two derivatives, you see that you take one. After that, you in order to do that, you need to do a integration by parts. That's why you obtain the Laplacian. And after that, you take the second derivative and have a delta. Okay? Here you take 2 times. The first time you eliminate the integral, the second one you have a delta. In this term, the first one eliminate the fourth and you eliminate a power. The second eliminate the second power and give you a delta. And after that, you evaluate that in a constant field. Okay? And it is clear that if you take the Fourier transform, you see the gradient become momenta by vector. Okay, so 2 here give you a p square, and the delta is eliminated. Okay. So in the minutes I have left, I will show you what happens to the correction, for example, to R0. R0, you see, is the inverse of the susceptibility. Because you see, what is the susceptibility? You see the relation of the potential. This is an exact relation of the potential with a constant external source is that. Okay? So, if you show that, well, if you take a second derivative, I mean, the derivative of phi with respect to j is the susceptibility. So here, let's take a second derivative with respect to phi. You have the second derivative of the potential is the derivative of j with respect to phi, and this is nothing but the inverse of the susceptibility. So this quantity, the second derivative here of that is the susceptibility. So the mean field susceptibility is nothing but R0. So we want to calculate the correction to the susceptibility and compare it to the dominant field. So let's call R to the inverse susceptibility. So I take 2 derivatives there. So and I evaluate it at 0. I suppose I'm near the paramagnetic. I am looking at the system from the paramagnetic side. Okay. So I put j to 0 is the same that put phi to 0. So I take two derivatives because I'm putting that in phi equal to 0. This term does not contribute, but I must take the derivative here. So the first derivative give me a q squared plus r0 plus u0 over 2 pi to the square, and I must then take a second derivative. When I take a second derivative, I must differentiate here, so it gives me a u0. There is a 1/2 here, and I have a done. Now that's the first derivative, sorry. So I have that, and then if I take a second derivative, I eliminate that phi, and I can put that here. You see? I've been to okay. So this is the of course there is also the zero order term. And you see the correction comes with powers of the coupling. That's a generic feature. If you consider corrections, they are proportional to the nonlinear term. So let's see when this is similar to that and when it's different. Okay? So
what are you squared?
Sorry?
What's Q?
P squared.
Oh, it's P. Sorry.
Yeah. So now, what is the temperature where the susceptibility diverges? The susceptibility diverges at the critical temperature. So at the critical temperature, what is the value of R? 0. So plus R0 plus and here, in this term, I can put simply 0 because the 0 at midfield, R0 is 0 at TC. You see? Because and this is already a correction. So in this term, I can replace R0 by R. So at TC, it's 0. Okay? So here I have 1 over 2 squared. So, sorry, I go to the square. It's automatic. I cannot do it. and then I subtract, and I have that R at T, at any temperature. Sorry, what I'm doing here is equal to R0 of T minus R0 of TC plus u0 over 2 times this interval. But I must take the difference here. I can put R instead of R0, so it becomes R over Q squared times Q squared plus R. So, the microscopic parameter R0 is supposed to be a regular function of the temperature. So here I can do in general an analytical expansion at the first order, and you see that two things different happen. If you are above, well, here this integral seems to be divergent at height q, but this is an artifact, because we forgot that there is a lattice, it's a microscopic cutoff. So this is cut off at the inverse of the lattice space. But moreover, you see that if you are above d equal 4, you can safely take r to 0 here, and the integral will behave correctly. Will have no problem. Okay? But if you have below 4 dimensions, this integral, when r goes to 0, becomes infrared. It's called infrared because small q divergent. So when you want, if you want to take r to 0, that is to approach the critical temperature, the loop correction diverges at the critical temperature. So you cannot trust midfield or an perturbative expansion around midfield. You cannot trust it if you are below 4 dimensions. In that case, you need to do something else. Okay? One possibility is to use perturbative renormalization. Okay? I was supposed to speak today to explain an alternative, but I'll at least arrive to the point where I see why such a method is necessary to go beyond midfield. You need renormalization group treatment, and I will do that next time. Thank you very much.
Understanding the problem is just important to solve it. So, in place. Questions, please? I guess sorry. No,
I want to go to this is perfect. Great. Any questions?
That's a question. That's a question. Okay, go ahead.
So you put a explicit cutoff at lambda, but is there some connection between IR divergence and UV divergence, and somehow you need both of them to get normalization?
No, I would say no. Many people would say yes, but I would say no. Because you may have theories where you don't have ultraviolet divergence at all, but you have very non-trivial infrared effects. Okay? So in principle, in general, they are not related. Of course, there are some particular cases where dimension analysis allows you to relate both ultraviolet and infrared divergence. But this is not the general case. Typically, when you are in 4 dimensions, okay, infrared and ultraviolet divergence are related because these become a logarithm. So to take the derivative with respect to the ultraviolet scale and the infrared scale is almost the same. It changes simply a sign. So near the upper critical dimension, both kind of divergence are related, but in general they are not.
Other questions? Well, if not, let's thank the speaker again. Before we disappear for lunch,